All right. Well, it's 6:01, and we do have a quorum together. So why don't we go ahead and get tonight's meeting of the Finance Committee of the Board of Education started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Colin Hostin, Finance Chair, joined by my colleagues, Kara Bakey and Diana Carpio. And we are going to go right into tonight's agenda by opening up by reviewing and approving the minutes. This has been from our June meeting. We've had a little bit of a holiday here. The June minutes were included in tonight's agenda. Assuming everybody had a chance to look at it. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from June? Kara and Diana, any comments or corrections to the minutes?
Didn't see
No,
any.
they look good to me.
Good to me too. So all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or raise your hand. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Now we will open it up to comments from any member of the public who is present and wishes to speak, and I don't think we have any. Gonna triple check here. No. Okay. If there's no public comments, we'll move right into our action items for tonight, starting with our review of our September financials. And for that, I'll kick it over to our CFO, Linda Asmani.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Are you seeing this?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow, it worked on the first try. Yay. All right, well, yeah, we haven't done this till June. I'm kind of out of practice somewhat. So a couple of things before I go into the June financials. The first thing is just to give you an update. We have already started the FY24 budget process. We've sent out, we typically start with central office departments, so those packets have gone out and central office departments are working on those. We have also sent out packets for capital budget requests, just so that we can start to get a sense of what the capital needs are, before we put the capital budget together. One thing that we did differently this beginning this budget season was involve the building principals in identifying their capital needs. In the past, this has been managed centrally, and so we felt like this would be a good opportunity for the principals to also be part of the process, determining what their needs are, regardless of the funding source. Many of our schools are generously supported by SGCs and PTAs and so forth, but we did want to get a sense of what the capital needs are out there, regardless of how they're being funded, just so that we have a more holistic picture. So you will be seeing some of those capital projects, whether they need outside funds or not, but just to give you a sense of what the needs are at the buildings. And then the second thing I wanted to point out before I get to this is I will not be at the Tuesday business meeting, so I'm going to be more thorough with these financials. Kristen will cover for me if there are any questions on Tuesday, but I'm going to spend a bit more detail going through these numbers just to make sure that the Finance Committee is comfortable going into Tuesday. But between you and Kristen, we should be fine fielding any questions that may happen. So right off the bat, begin just overview of the 2023 budget, which is the budget we're looking at now. So in front of you is the budget. You can see 2 years of actuals and where we are year to date relative to this period last year. As you can see, 78% of our budget is salaries and benefits. As you hear the superintendent many times say that we are a people business, and that's where the bulk of our expenses are. So you're looking at these numbers, roughly 80% is salaries plus benefits. What is also included in this, you'll recall that this year when the budget was approved, we were funding the South Norwalk School with rollover funds, and so they were not included in this budget. So we are capturing the South Norwalk School expenses in the year to date, but they were not part of the original budget. You recently approved the carryover request. Our colleagues on the BET have also done so. So the next step is just to get those funds moved into this budget. And so when we come back to you in subsequent months, you will see that the adjusted and the original budget for FY23 will show that variance. The adjusted number will reflect that inflow of funding for the South Norwalk School. But in the meantime, we're carrying those expenses until that transfer comes. So as far as the general fund, we're about 34%, 34.2 million budget relative to the 23.9 last year. And again, the driving factors there include the fact that the South Norwalk School is included in this number. And as I go through some of the subsequent slides, you'll recall that last year we had some major staffing challenges. And therefore, this period last year, we had many few bodies on the workforce on our payroll as we are this year. So we're getting back to a normal sense of staffing levels. And therefore, you will see that relative to last year, some of our expenses year to date anyway will show higher numbers than last year. But we did budget for a full complement of staffing. And therefore, there are no concerns in terms of our ability to pay for the staffing. But you will notice those variances. And primarily, the driver is the labor force that we have in place. So looking at salaries again to that point, this year we're at 18.1 million, whereas this period last year we were at 17. Again, that is largely driven by the staffing levels. We are in a much better position this year than we were last year. And even with that, though, this year to date only reflects 13.7% of our total salaries budget. We are 25% into the year, and therefore it is still trending lower relative to where the budget is. But you do recall that towards the summer, we do have that balloon payment for the summer pay, which kind of evens it out. But that's where we are with salaries. The same thing on the benefit side. Benefits tend to trend with the salaries. The reason you're seeing that year to date is showing that we are lower year to date compared to last year is timing of Social Security payments. We remit payments to the IRS on a monthly basis, but our colleagues on the city side do that remittance for us. And therefore, it's really just the timing. And so I did double check. We are at about 0.9 year to date on the benefits. It's just a matter that the remittance has happened. It just hasn't been booked to the Board of Ed yet. So the payments are made, but they're not yet booked. So year to date, again, we are where we would anticipate to be with the salaries and benefits. Professional technical services, year to date, again, this reflects about 14% of the year, whereas we're 25% of the year in. The variance here is really just the timing of this year. We've partnered with a few more agencies to provide supports to our children, social services, and those types of things. And we have been more proactive in making those payments up front, and therefore we are making those payments in a more timely fashion than the prior year. But if you look at the budgets year over year, last year we had 7.4 million, and this year's budget is 7.8. There's a slight increase of the total budget for technical and professional services, but that's really what's driving that change. Property services, these are mainly services to upkeep our facilities. We have been gradually outsourcing janitorial services as retirements occur. You'll recall we had that plan in place. And this year we have 2 new facilities that are on the outsource list. We have brought on Nathan Hill Middle School, and we also have the South Norwalk School also. And so those are primarily the factors that are driving the year-over-year variance in property services this year. But even then, we're at about 31% of the overall budget, and so we're trending how we would anticipate to be trending there. Other services, this is an interesting one. This is where we pay for our student transport services. And based on when we were billed for those services, there have been delays in the past in making those payments. This year, we are again being proactive in making those payments, and therefore we are caught up on the payment of our bills. you'll see that the total budget for the year is about 19.6%. The 10.5 million reflects almost 50% of the overall budget because we have prepaid many of those expenses up front. And so it's not an area of concern that we're trending higher than we would. These are all contracts. We're just paying them in advance, and then we'll see another chunk of payment probably around December or January. But this is just a way of being proactive and being current with our vendors to make sure that we pay them on a timely fashion. And so that's really the driver for the other services. Supplies and material, again, this is payments for various equipments that we use in the buildings and in our schools. You'll recall that last year we had a significant supply chain issue going into last year, and we had carried over almost $2 million from the prior year into fiscal year 22 because there are supply chain issues. And therefore, last year actually reflected almost not 2 years of payments, but there was a significant chunk of money that we paid in FY22 that was an FY21 expense. And that's what's driving the variance this year. So the 0.93 is a more accurate reflection of this year's budget. We did not have any significant amount of carryover from last year, but that's really what's driving the variance in our supplies and material. That was curriculum equipment from last year, if you recall, that we had requested to roll over into this year. On the equipment side, again, this reflects about 13.7% of the budget. Again, it is trending lower than it was last year. This is primarily, again, just the timing with supply chain issues. We have put in orders, but we pay as the items are delivered. And therefore, there's just a timing in terms of when we take delivery of some of the school equipment that we've ordered. And so we are at 0.3 million compared to 0.9 million this period last year. And then other objects, these are just miscellaneous expenses that don't fall neatly into the categories I just mentioned. We're at 0.08 versus 0.09, so just under 100,000 year to date. But again, we're trending where we would anticipate to be trending in this area. So those are the major subtotals of the general fund. You do have the detailed line item information in your packets. I also included the narrative of what I just went over. It's also part of the report that's part of the agenda packet. And so that information is also included for your reference as well. And then briefly, I'd like to talk about where we are with the grant programs and the school lunch fund. And so the grant programs, we're at about 8.4 million year-to-date spend compared to last year at 8.1. Again, a significant amount of these, if you look at the FY23 and FY22 budgets on these bars compared to FY21, you can see the impact of the ESSER funds. So this was that influx of grant funding from the federal government, which obviously, as we know, is going away at the end of this fiscal year. But those are really the drivers of those expenses. And so we've rolled over funds from last year that weren't spent. We have this year to spend and a sliver of FY24. But that is really what's driving the grant funding. Again, these are restricted funds. We can't really go over budget, and we can only spend what we get. And so, but we did want to show you where we were in terms of spending in this area. And then the last budget item I wanted to talk about is the school lunch fund. Again, this is trending where we would anticipate it to trend. Last year, we were at 0.7 million. This year, we're at 0.78, which is roughly where we were last year. If you look at the actuals last year at 7.2 million, we approved a budget of 7.3 million, just accounting for cost of the lunches and so forth. But it's a modest increase with the school lunch program. And you've heard my colleague Sandra Fayos talk about the new CEP program that we're embarking on this fiscal year. And we will see some additional reimbursements coming in, but we anticipate to come in at about the same level as we've done historically with the budgets. So before I move on to the next item, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on the general fund, the grant fund, the school fund.
Thank you, Linda. And as always, I think you do a great job of anticipating any questions and helping contextualize the numbers with the narrative. Any questions from Kara or Diana? I don't have any questions. I just want to say it's probably great news that our staffing costs are up this year. We know the challenges that every public school district in the country is currently dealing with, and the fact that Norwalk is really making some proactive progress in that regard is very laudable. So that's great.
Our HR team has done a great job.
Okay, if you want to move on to the next, is this for?
And I'll have Kristen kind of walk us through the transfers.
Yes, thank you.
We have a series of transfers in your packet as well. I have them on the screen just for your reference.
Hi, everyone. How are you? So walking through the budget transfers, there's a few pages of them. And as we go throughout the year, we're trying to do them up front. More so, some of them are budget cleanup items, correction items, shifting, knowing our priorities up front. And throughout the year, hopefully there'll be less of them because we're doing more of them up front. So the first transfer, as you can see here, we're shifting funds from a position where the person is no longer there. It's a system information assistant. And this was just to moving the funds to create a new technician position, because we need that because we're doing a lot of things online, moving away from paper, helping the students online. So that was a needed position there. The second transfer that you see here is for the Roten School. And this is to shift funds to reinstate a Dean of Students position that they had there. It's a certified position. They're taking it from some aid accounts, textbooks accounts, which were not needed, and creating this much needed Dean of Students role. The third transfer that you see here is for West Rocks. And this is due to a lack of certified Spanish teachers that have been available. It's not that we're getting rid of teachers, we're just temporarily shifting the Spanish programming to every other day, similar to other middle schools, as opposed to every day for grades 6 and 7, just for this particular year. The good news is these funds are being reinvested in professional learning for math-based student outcomes this school year only, and we're anticipating reestablishing everyday Spanish for these students for the 23-24 budget year. And part of this has to do with the lack of staffing and teacher shortages, but they were able to adjust the schedule. The fourth budget transfer here is actually a reversal of last month's transfer. In all transparency, we added the 8th guard at the high school, and we thought we were going to outsource this guard. So really it's moving the funding from a 330 to back to a internal 127 position, and it's going to be the 8th guard, which is an internal employee. So everyone will be an internal employee at the high school for security. The next one is to shift funds from the equipment account to cover the benefits required by a change from 2 office aide positions to a full-time secretary position. So the shifting of funds for salary, it's in the same object code, but we're making 1 full-time secretary position. So we needed to fund those associated benefits. The next 3 positions have to do with narratives that you've heard in the past. We, in the special education area, look at IEP requirements, caseload adjustments. So the first one there is shifting funding from Fox Run to Cranberry due to the IEP requirements and caseloads. Second one is shifting funds from Fox Run to Merrimack for the same reason. And the third one from Tracy to Merrimack. At the top of this slide, we have the first transfer, and it's to shift funds, again, from a staff shortage, from a vacant OT position. And this, we decided to carve out 12 weeks of the need of shifting the money from the internal salary account 145 to a 330 and outsourcing that OT vacancy account for the 12 weeks. The second transfer on here relates to the shifting of funds from a 122 object code to a 121 object code this was really the intent of the transfer is not changing. It was budgeted in a 122, this particular position, where it should have been a 121. So that's a budget error correction, if you will. The third transfer here is for the Silvermine School, and this is to create one new secretary position by, again, closing down an office aide position. The office aide positions are really merging into secretary type positions within the school district through attrition. And we also needed to add to that a decrease in the supplies slightly in order to help an equipment account in order to help fund this new role, or adjusted role, shall I say. The next one here is to shift funds from an inactive 27.5-hour position at West Rocks due to a caseload adjustment. And the adjustment following that has to do with a vacant OT position. Let's see, sorry. Same thing, vacant OT from internal to outsourced professional services due to staffing shortage. And then finally, the last one on this page, the transfer has to do with shifting the funds from a row-in special education aid to a row-in special education aid due to the IEP caseload adjustments, similar to ones that were on the following pages. I'm not going to go into detail of every single one of these adjustments. This really is something that really should have been captured within the budget. In theory, it was, but the account coding, as you can see here, it has to do with the MLL per pupil allocation. We shifted everything in the budget from central office to the school-based, based on the MLL per pupil calculation. And for some reason, when it posted, it stayed within the central office accounts, and it really should have been hitting these particular school accounts. So that's really a budget adjustment, not by intent, but by account. The last few here, the first one here, as you can see, relates to communications, and that's really an object code adjustment. When we did the reorganization within the communications department, the position changed from a cabinet member position more to a director type position. So then that entailed an object code change as well. The second one here has to do with shifting funds from the Tracy psychologist to a Tracy social worker. And this relates to IEP requirements and caseload adjustments. The third one here relates to early childhood. And initially, when we struck the budget, early childhood was falling under the EEI equity department. And it's simply, as you can see, it's account for account. That department oversight is now falling under curriculum. So that's just to move that funding to the correct oversight department. And then finally, the curriculum MLL teacher, we are moving that to an assistant supervisor. So that role is moving from an ESL testing facilitator role to an actual MLL supervisor under the NASA bargaining unit. Does anyone have any questions in particular?
All the questions I had, you answered, Kristen. So thank you so much for that very thorough and detailed account. And also thank you for doing, I know this is, can sometimes be, obviously time consuming work. And we appreciate the work being done up front to make our job easier on the back end. So thank you so much to you and your team for doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. Everyone's trying to clean it up and get it up to speed. So then when we look at the financial results, they are more in line.
Perfect. If there are no questions from Kara and Diana, we can move on with the agenda. And I think we saved the best for last today. I don't know if we, this has been publicly announced obviously already before, right? But I think worth celebrating again.
Yes, but do you not need, I think you need a motion on the transfers, so you can.
Yes.
Board.
Thank you for that reminder, Linda. If there are no questions or concerns about the transfers, can I have a motion to approve or recommend approval of the transfers to the full board?
Motion.
Kara? And seconded by Diana, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for that reminder, Linda. Now on to the very good news. And I'll actually hand it over to Linda to make the official announcement.
Thank you. So we did share this via email, but we felt like we should bring it to you as the finance committee, and then we'll also bring it to the full board officially to the records. But as you saw, we are excited. One of the things that we had set out to do, I think, last year when I was onboarding was to basically up our game in financial reporting. And there were standards that we felt that we had the team and the skills and the ability to do. And so we set a benchmark for ourselves that we really wanted to produce a budget document that met certain standards for award and recognition. But the goal really is not so much to receive an award or to receive recognition. It is indeed to just be transparent and to do things in a manner that's consistent with best practice. Our budget book that we put together for you, again, serves four purposes. It does serve as a financial plan, so anyone who opens a document can get a sense of where we as a district are going. The requirement is that we also have 3 years worth of projections that are included in there. We talk about the grants and what the grants scenario is. In that 3-year plan, we also take into account the sunsetting of the ESSO grants and how that's going to impact us. So it is indeed a financial plan and a roadmap of how the future votes for us. But I think the second piece too is what we've talked about, the essence of telling our story. And what the budget book does also is it is intended to be a communications guide. We talk about obviously the chairman's message and your vision for the district and the superintendent's message. We talk about programmatic information, what's happening at the schools and so forth. It also includes student achievement and student scores and statistics and trend information and where we trend. So it is not just a financial tool, but it is also a communication device. It's a way for us to tell our story and for people with questions or interest in what we do, how things are trending, they can use that as a document for that purpose. The third element that the book is supposed to also address is an operations guide, even for us as department heads, as cabinet members, as principals, as social workers, as teachers. It is a guide for us as we report, we work for a school, we work in a district. It does give us a sense of where we are going as an entity. It includes elements of the strategic plan, strategic priorities. So all of those things are included in this document. So it is more than a budget tool, but it is also an operations guide. And the final piece, as you know, one of the most important things that you as a board do is obviously approve a budget, but approving a budget is setting policy. And therefore, this is also a policy document because it outlines what your priorities are. It outlines what your funding priorities are. You talk about concerns. You talk about programs and initiatives that you're looking to do in the future, and you also celebrate success. And so that's what this book does in one document. So with all that, you submit the book to peer review. They review it and they give you a designation that deem that you have met these awards, and essentially that's the end result is the award, but the goal is really not to get an award. The goal is to provide consistent information because we are stewards of tax dollars, and we have to be responsive to the community and we have to share with them. So that's in essence what that budget book is about. So this is a copy of the NICE certificate. They'll be sending us a more glamorous one once it's engraved, and we will prominently display it in the building. But it also came with a press release, official press release, because the International Association is based out of state. It is an international entity. out in Ashburn, Virginia, and they did issue a press release when this was awarded. And we also issued a corresponding press release here locally, but we did want to just officially present this to you as the Finance Committee. And obviously, this would not have happened without your support, guidance, and direction. And so we appreciate you as well for this. And so it is our award for you. So thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you. And the first thing I want to do is on behalf of my colleagues here on the committee and throughout the entire board is congratulate wholeheartedly our CFO and the entire finance team. This is a huge effort. It's a team effort. And, you know, one of the things I said in the chair's letter in the book is if you want to, and this is, you know, this is not my phrasing, but we all know if you want to see an organization's priorities, you have to look at where it spends its money. And I think this budget book does a really great job of demonstrating our priorities and commitment to excellence for every student here at Norwalk Public Schools. And, you know, one of the tenets of our strategic plan, which is to achieve operational excellence across our finance, operations, HR teams. This is all part of that, and it's coming to fruition. So it's a wholehearted congratulations from me and my colleagues. I'll open the floor for Kara and Diana to add theirs.
You know, Lunda's very humble over there, and he was just very professional trying to give us the information and let us know, even though it's already out there, but we already knew. But congratulations to Lunda and the team. This was something that was very difficult to do in a very short period of time because he was very new with us here also. But thankful for the team, thankful for everything that you have done. Like Colin says, it's about all the children, the full district, and this shows transparency and what a wonderful job and team that we have in place for Norwalk Public Schools.
So yeah, I'm not sure what else can be said, but I do echo Colin and Diana in congratulating you, Lunda and Kristen and the entire team in a job very, very well done. It's obvious that you know your stuff, and the budget book was quite impressive and organized. And I do feel like, you know, you and your team have such a good handle on all of this that it's easy to attend these committee meetings. So thank you.
And because Lunda is on the humble side, I think this text is a little small to read. Lunda, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it out so that folks paying attention will know exactly what it says. The certificate says this meritorious budget award is presented to Norwalk Public Schools for excellence in the preparation and issuance of its budget for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. It's signed by the President and Executive Director of the Association of School Business Officials International. And I encourage everyone in the community, our colleagues in city government, our community members, families, parents, to take a look, you know, peruse the book. I believe, has it been posted on the website, the entire thing?
It is on the finance page of the website.
Great. It's available online, and I'm sure we can make a physical copy available to anyone who is interested. It's worth it. Take a look, and congrats again.
Congrats.
And sorry, Christy, what were you saying?
No, I said thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you and the entire team. And I think on that very positive note, unless there's any other business, the only other thing on our agenda is our adjournment. So at 6:35, short and sweet. Thank you again to the entire team, to my colleagues, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
You
Have
too.
a good night.
Good night.